Okay, so I'm the edge. All right, let me slide this over then. That'll help us remember. Yeah, what's the other edge? So you went tighter. Okay. All right, good evening and welcome to the November meeting or 2022 for the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club. Let's see if we have any visitors out here tonight. I don't see any, but any in the back row there, or you all been here before? Ah, from Seattle. Tell us who you are. We can share.
Yeah, John Lyle. I joined the club in 1995, and I had to move to Utah in 2016, and then to Seattle. But I've kept my membership, and I first heard of the club back in 1971. But I always enjoyed the club, and it's the one thing I really miss about Denver. So, and I'm glad that you have Zoom meetings because now I can take part again. So that's all I can think of to say.
Well, we're glad you came to visit us, John. Thanks for making the long distance trip there. There's another longtime visitor. Pete West is here, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the house. I guess another announcement I have is next month is our annual meeting. And we're still taking nominations for new board members, and got a couple slots that we could use some extra people. If anybody wants to volunteer for a board member position, come see me or Dave afterwards. And otherwise, we've got one or two to nominate for next month, and we'll be having our annual meeting and a short 30-minute presentation, and then we will be having our usual cookies and sodas. So I guess that's all I got. Guess we'll hand it over to Chip Sherman here.
Okay, smile. You're on candid camera. Top of the evening. Hey, starting in January, we're going to be doing the electronic newsletter that was voted in by the board of directors this year. I've been working on it, testing it. And of course, Bruce Null, who's been the editor of the Rail Report for 25 years, has given me the opportunity to change the format from printed to electronic. So buy those cell phones and laptops now, because we'll be able to send them a lot faster, like 5 seconds after I send it out. Anyways, breaking news. The Omnitrax thought they had bought the San Luis and Rio Grande. That's in bankruptcy. Well, the bankruptcy court received another bid. It's by Stefan Solovic. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Anyways, he's the owner of the Colorado Pacific Railroad down there on the old Missouri Pacific Towner line. They received the bid, and it's a little higher than Omnitrax. So there's a little bidding war going on. And if you remember Wasatch Railroad contractors up there in Cheyenne, Wyoming, they're having an online auction that's open for viewing at this time. And the online auction is on the 15th of November, coming up soon. So check your online opportunities because it's only online. Yeah, he's got some miniature trains, but yeah, he's got office furniture, pictures, a lot of tools, toolboxes. You'd have to take a look. Yeah, that's about all I saw. But yeah, the owner got caught cheating the federal government. The Central of New Jersey coach was supposed to be restored or worked on. He fudged the numbers, is a good word for it, and is doing time in a federal prison. So if you get a federal contract, remember the feds get pissed if you don't deliver. So yeah, the feds actually prosecuted. Yes. Okay. Yes, Jim.
He was bragging about having a couple of cabooses. Has he got a couple of cabooses for sale?
I didn't see him on the auction. It's online. You'll have to go like to look at Wasatch Railroad Contractors, I think it was, auction. That could be. Yeah, that's a good thought. I don't know anything about the cabooses, to be honest. Okay, that could. Okay. Also, December 3rd, guys, Santa Claus is coming to town. That's Eads, Colorado. By the way, Eads is out there on the old Missouri Pacific Towner line, Eastern Colorado. December 3rd, supposedly Santa's going to ride a couple brand new or freshly painted SD40s, and trailing behind will be a contingent of motor cars. This is Saturday, December 3rd. If you have nothing to do and it's a beautiful day, you might want to go to Haswell. They're going to start from there and go to east to Eads, EADS, Colorado. I know it's a popular spot. So just mark that down. And then of course, Omnitrax, Great Western, they also have a Christmas Santa Claus train, but I don't know when that is. I'm going to guess either the 3rd or the 10th. They usually do it early in December. And that's usually held up there at Windsor, Colorado. So any other breaking news? Yes.
Nathan's got something here.
So I got word today that supposedly the semaphores on the Raton line from Las Vegas to Lamy are going out of service on November 18th. So after number 4 passes, they'll start the cutover, and the plan is to have them all cut in, all the new signals cut in by the time number 3 shows up the next morning. So you want semaphore shots, you got 1 week left. Yeah, the cutover will be at night. The other thing is, for those of you who remember the old Rio Grande caboose that came from Parker and then sat out in front of the revamped caboose hobby shop, it apparently has been sold and is headed over the mountains to Carbondale. No word on the purchaser. So that's what I know.
Thank you for that contribution. That was, for those of you that can't see him, which is probably most people out there in TV land, that was Nathan Holmes, a past president. And also I'm a past president, Dave Schaaf. This is Andy, who's our current president. And I'm announcing this because the people in the room already know who we are, but there might be people out there that have no idea. So now you might have an idea. As Andy mentioned briefly, our December meeting will be programmed by Keith Jensen. He'll be showing some video of three steam train down at the Cumberland and Toltec from 2006. Our January guest presenter will be Steve Berry from Railfan and Railroad Magazine. Wanted to thank again, we aren't to the end of the year yet, but thank Michael Tanetti for 20 years of keeping track of the membership, and also 25 years of Bruce Nall shepherding our newsletter along. That's a lot of years invested in there. We would like to have everybody silence your cell phones so they don't go off in the middle of the show, because you know Dennis will get really upset if you interrupt his show. And on that note, I'll introduce Dennis Livesey live and direct from New York City, and I will let Dennis tell us about his program. Thanks for being here, Dennis.
Well, hi, folks. Greetings from Manhattan. Here on finally a chilly, crisp November day. This is my second time that David has so graciously asked me to speak to you guys. Of course, I've known about the Colorado, the club for decades, and historic and famed rail fans like Kindig and Perry and Macpoor. It's an illustrious history that the club has. Dave just asked me to come here, and this is pretty casual. It's basically the ideas I cast around for an idea. I thought, well, how about what photographs I've been doing this year? And so I did those, and then just for fun, I added some more other shots that other people have liked over the years, but mostly this is what I've done here in 2022. Now, just as a warning, even though I'm a rail fan just as much as you guys are, I tend to be not that into the information of the equipment that we're looking at. For me, the hobby is about taking as exciting a photograph as I possibly can of our beloved subject. A little history. I was born and raised in Mamaroneck, New York, and I saw my first train, a New Haven commuter train, while my mother and I were picking up my father in Mamaroneck. I was 2. Not long after that, I got a Lionel train set. And then my dad, when I was 5, handed me this book, and it's Lucius Beebe's Highball. And this book, well, it made me a rail fan, and I was a goner for trains ever since. So then usual high school and stuff. I graduated from New York University Film School, and oddly enough, I wound up in Los Angeles by a peculiar series of events, and I actually started a career there as a motion picture camera assistant and operator. A few years after that, though, I said, I love LA, but I love New York more. So I came back here and started over again. And that led to a very good career working on independent features, commercials, and stuff like that. Yes, I've worked with Sylvester Stallone, Madonna, and even Miss Piggy. So without further ado, because I got a lot of pictures here, we'll just sort of run through it. Maybe Dave will want to tell me to back up or cut off or something like that. Oh, well, one other point, the past 12 years, I've been a volunteer at Steamtown, National Historic Site. I am a qualified FRA conductor for our passenger trains. So without further ado, let's start with the good stuff, hopefully. And let's see, I just got to make sure everything's right here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, here. Where's that screen sharing? Okay, does that look good, guys? Hello? Anybody?
Sorry, I had us muted on this end. Yes, that looks good.
Oh, okay, great. Otherwise, I'd just keep blathering on. All right, here we are. Obviously, I didn't do this year, but I just thought to get things going, who could resist 611? And here she is on the very grades that she was meant to conquer. This is the Blue Ridge grade. She's heading eastbound toward Lynchburg on a, they did a series of round trips from Roanoke to Lynchburg. And then once the morning trip from Lynchburg got back, they then went to Christiansburg on the other side of Roanoke and came back. They did this for several weeks or several weekends, and it was a blast. I was able to make it for a couple of them. This is Villamont, obviously, and these were the waning hours of the color position lights that the Norfolk and Western installed. And of course, 611 ran by these very signals back in her day. They were replaced within the year. Okay, let's see, what's next? I forget. Let's see, let's try that again, Dennis. Whoop, sorry. There we go. Just for fun, I went over to the Strasbourg one evening and tried my hand at doing a little flash set up a la Winston Link. And I so well remember seeing that little sign, population 17 more or less, when I was, I don't know, I was about 11 years old when we first went, my father and I went to the Strasbourg. Much later, here at Steamtown, this is 2016, and that's the Baldwin Locomotive Works number 26. She was obviously at 060. built for stock, I think. I think they had 3 of them identical shop switchers. They were in their original kind of olive green with silver accents. And long story how she wound up here, but it was a long restoration, but that we got her going in 2016, and she's been a reliable performer ever since. I've had the privilege of being a fireman trainee on her, and well, yeah, she's little and she's pulling a 2-car train and so forth. But when we get to start up our hill, which is considerable, 1.4, 1.5, she's, you know, she's chugging away. I'm bailing coal, whistle's blowing. It sounds like we're bringing in the Lackawanna mail. It's fun. That's Mr. Gardenia over there. His mother operates the Steamtown gift shop, and he is one of the mechanics. This was during a blowdown sequence where they were getting ready to do a 30-day inspection. They opened the snifter valves, cracked the throttle, and all 160 pounds of steam just goes out 2 valves. It's a tremendous amount of noise, but a tremendous amount of steam, and you get stuff like this. Way back in January 17, 2009, this was a point for me. I've been taking train pictures since 1960, but I was always frustrated. I just wasn't in control of the camera. This particular day, these particular sequence of shots, once I got them home and on the computer and converted them to black and white, it just was, it was the moment. It was the epiphany moment where, I don't know, everything just clicked. These images were exactly what I was feeling at the time, this excitement of looking at this thing. It was 10 degrees below. The sky was crystal clear, but doggone it, it was cold. And, you know, we love cold for what it does with the steam vapor. That's Aaron Stout in the cab there. And I didn't know him at the time, but it was funny. We've now been friends since 2010. To give you more proof that it was cold, here's icicles hanging off what we call the green shed, which has a variety of tools that we use to get the passenger train ready in the morning. And one more. Yeah, the 3254s there getting steam up. It was an excursion called the Ice Train that we ran, went between Scranton and Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania, along the former Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Main Line. You know, it's still an active freight line. It's operated under contract from the 2 counties that own the right-of-way, the company called the Delaware Lackawanna. Delaware Lackawanna is a prosperous road. Their biggest job is servicing a grain plant. But you know, rail fans absolutely adore the place because it has all the locomotives are Alcos, Centuries, and their mechanical people know how to these machines inside and out, keep them in top repair, and they just work great. So it's a lot of fun. I get steam and Alcos all at the same time whenever I'm there. And speaking of which, there's one of them now. This is these gantry cranes and stuff. After the Delaware Lackawanna over to the left in 1910 built a magnificent, enormous erecting hall to maintain all their steam locomotives. And they stopped that all by 1953 or so. And they sold it to General Dynamics, which is a federal government contractor. And inside of the building, they manufacture shells, you know, for cannons. And every once in a while, you hear a pallet dropped, and there's this clanging of bells of dozens of casings hitting the concrete. On occasion, the DL goes in there and services a load of, I don't know, takes out scrap or brings loads. See, I'm sorry, this is me, I don't know. But as you can see, restricted area, don't go there. But all the visible track that you see, that's Steamtown property. And we can walk on that. In the far distance is South Scranton, traditionally working class neighborhood of, there were thousands and thousands of men and women working for the 7 railroads that were in Scranton at one time. Now we go to something absolutely delightful, near and dear to my heart, and it should appeal to you narrow gauge buffs. Here we are, a genuine Maine 2-footer. We are on the reconstructed Wiscasset, Waterville, and Farmington Railway, and abandoned in 1932. A man who played on its right of way in the 30s, the 40s, who had a dream of reconstructing it, it has come about. That name was Henry Percival, and he worked for utility companies in Maine, and he was looking through the maps, and he noticed that there was this long string of real estate that nobody owned or was available, and he wound up snapping up about 12 miles of the 54 mile long railway, and it's located in Alna, Maine, and they've now in 25 so years, 30 years, have reconstructed 3.5 miles of track. They have this locomotive, which is a genuine WW&F locomotive. It originally went for the Sandy River, and then it went over to the Kennebec Central. That went belly up because they took away the coal traffic, and the man who was running the WWF at the time bought the Kennebec Central because he could get this locomotive and the other one, there were 2, and that was cheaper than fixing any of the ones that he already owned. The 9 worked only a few months in 1933 before it was sidelined, and the railroad was abandoned that year. The locomotive was picked up by a couple of rail fans and was put in a barn in Connecticut, where it resided for the next 50 years or so, until Henry Percival was able to convince the man who bought it to his daughter, who was elderly by that time as well, that the WW&F, the new one, would be a perfect home for this. That's Bullet Bob Longo, engineer. He just has a delightful time with this locomotive, which happens to be made in Maine, in Portland, by the Portland Locomotive Company. It's 131 years of age. Okay, we finally hit something I did this year in 2022. In the engineer's seat, that's Jay Monty. On overhead with the glasses, that's Bill Pichet, who is this itinerant engineer. You will find Bill on almost any steam locomotive on the East Coast in some sort of capacity. He's just everywhere. A really nice guy. And then the fellow down in the lower left, that's Orrin Hellbach, a very dear friend and a wonderful chronicler of steam. He's an eloquent writer. You can go to his website, Where Steam Lives, and read any number of delightful essays. It's funny, Orrin, he's like 6'2" or 6'3", and I think this is about the only way he can fit into this cab. They are very tiny. And here I am. I managed to weasel my way into a cab ride. That's Dan Makowski over on the left. He's almost 20 in this picture. And that's Wes, I believe, Carpenter as the engineer. Dan, oddly enough, he's got his hand on a brake wheel. Now, you got to understand something that's interesting about the WWF. The cars and the trains don't have Westinghouse air brakes, yet they have a 4% grade. Okay, what do? Well, these boys and girls, they do it the old-fashioned way. The engineer calls for brakes, and each car has a crew member will then spin that brake wheel for and hold it there for as long as the engineer calls for it, and then he calls for release brakes, and they down twirl the brake wheels, and they go up and down the hill just like they did. This is incredible. I mean, some people might say, "Oh my gosh, it's terrible. What are they doing?" But you know, being a NORAC FRA qualified volunteer railroader, I certainly know about safety, and everybody at the WNF, the safety culture there is extremely strong, strong as anywhere you're going to see. They follow FRA regulations for the day that they may actually need to be a part of the FRA. And I've been on that trip up and down the hill a few times, and I never once ever felt that they were doing anything less than being as perfect as possible. Here's Dan showing the proper left over right hand technique in firing these little things. As you can see, it's very short handle on a very tiny scoop. It's a very tiny little firebox. It's not much bigger than a stove, but it's a good little locomotive. Like a Forney, she loves to run in reverse. Tracks really well that way. She's a beautiful little thing. Up on the over left, you can't see it. This is the original cab. That's not the original boiler. They made a brand new boiler because the old one was a mess. And they also made a new frame for it as well, but virtually everything else is original fabric. So when they returned the cab to the, they noticed a hook. Oh, it's up in the corner there. And they placed a lantern on this hook. And that lantern, which was the same type that the railroad used, there was a groove right in the wood that was put there 80, 90 years ago. Fit perfectly. As in keeping with the, no Westinghouse brakes, they also have no radios. Everything is hand signals. Here we are at pretty much the teeth of the grade. She's coming south here. And this is number 7. Number 7 is from originally for the Bridgetown and Saco River Railroad, which was not far from here, about, I don't know, about an hour's drive. That gave up the ghost, one of the last ones to go. So that's how Ellis Atwood was able to get this one and its twin, number 8. These belong to the Maine, the Narrow Gauge Railway Association of Maine in Portland. But in good fellowship, both museums borrow each other's equipment. There's Orrin on the left doing what he loves to do, and that's taking pictures of people interacting with the railroad. And it's Bob Longo in the cab, and that's a mother and her daughter, and the daughter is getting introduced to this magical thing called a steam locomotive. Not so that Orrin has all the fun. This is Bryce Weeks. He's holding his cousin, and we were just frolicking a little bit around in Alna, Maine, one of the stops on the railroad. And Bryce, he started volunteering there about when he was the size of his little cousin. He's been there all of his life volunteering, and he's becoming more and more responsible, active. He was the conductor on the train, and he did a great job. And he's also very involved with the track work and working on the museum The amazing thing about the WWF, it's sort of like this gold standard with, you know, whatever needs to be done, they do it. And rebuilding a railway, sure. Build a new turntable, not a problem. We need another locomotive. Why stop at one? Let's build two. And what are we going to do? We got to put them somewhere. Yeah, let's build an engine house and around. It's just phenomenal as compared to Steamtown, where, you know, things like that don't happen. It is so refreshing to see where things do happen. This is from this year. We're at Trout Brook. This is the very end of the line. Further beyond that picturesque outhouse is the state road, which they're reluctant to cross at this time. They have the 3.5 miles, and that's plenty for what they're doing. As Howard Pincus of the Naugatuck Railroad would say, you also can have a problem of having too much track. I think 3.5 is just fine for these folks. That's Ed Lodeker, back in Sheepscot, the southern end of the line, bending the iron for making up the next train. I'm sorry, now we're skipped back to the other end of the line, again with 7, back on this turntable. That turntable, that little thing of girders, was originally for the bridge down in Saco River. And Edenvale got it and used it there and extended it a couple of feet on either end. And they brought it, that became part of the group in Portland's, and Portland's lending this turntable to the WWF for now. Number 7 is very heavy, and so the 2 men have to use inch bars to move it a couple of feet. They're still working out some of the bugs with the turntable. Just at the other line, coming around the train. That's Nicole. She is a volunteer as well at WWF. She's energetically does whatever she's called upon to do. She's a brakeman, learning to be a conductor. There's Dan inspecting, and there's Bill Pichet, the engineer, back in the cab again, as we're getting ready to do a hitch. Again, my weaseling abilities bore fruit, and I'm in the cab again. This is number 7, and I've never been in this cab ever. The story, we're about to go over to the Trout Brook Bridge. This bridge is technically a covered bridge. No, it doesn't have a roof over the center section, but the bridge members, the truss, it's all sheathed in wood, so technically it's covered. This was originally Boston, Maine bridge up in New Hampshire, I believe. It was, the line was abandoned. Somebody torched it. Some group was able to, quasi-government group rescued it and had it there and wanted it to be used by somewhere. And the WWF said, listen, we'd like to have it. And so hundreds of hours of permits in building and construction and engineering that's way beyond anything I can comprehend, got this bridge put in this spot over the Trout Brook, which you see down on the lower right. This is the start of the grade to the top of the mountain. It's a location on the railroad that's the highest part of the railroad. Just a lovely detail in an original Jackson and Sharp combine. Well, now that's completely different. What the heck are we looking at here? This is very new. This was taken only a couple of days ago. What you're looking at is the East Broadtops right away. The crew is brush cutting, as you can see, furiously. This was all treed in. They were just, you couldn't walk there at all. The right of way is underneath the machine, and they just all they do, the ties were untreated, so they're just disintegrated to nothing. They just shove the rails over to the side. Then they rebuild the roadbed and put, give it a solid clay. It's earth, whatever it is. Then they put the ties, fresh, new, treated ties, and put rails on it with tie plates, and then build it up with actual ballast. In the far distance, you can't really see, is Jordan Summit, right? Oh, well, anyway, it's a famous, well, not famous, but it was a location that was used by many photographers. It is a slight hill for the train going south. Rock Hill, the center of the EBT, is behind me about a half mile. Also, this is a couple of days ago. On the right is Brad Esposito, general manager of the East Broad Top, railroader, and a man who's passionate about the EBT, and a really good man. And he knows what he's doing. Things, I can't tell you how much I admire what the East Broad Top Foundation is doing. Every single thing they're doing is just the right way, the best way that you can. There are compromises here, yes, but it is 2022. You have to exist within that. So, some rail fans may say, well, I shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and I miss this, I miss that. Overall, what they're doing is just perfect. I can't imagine it being done any better. Gentleman over the left is one of the friends of the East Broad Top. They were obviously, they're working on the south end of what is known as the car shop. And Brad's comment was that basically this end of the building was being held up by the shingles. Here you see some of the fine work as they're doing. I'm sure they're trying to get this done before it gets too cold. But most of what you're looking at is new wood. There was, they built most of the wooden buildings with like wooden posts into the ground. And this was like in 1915. These buildings weren't expected to, just throw it up there. Who cares how long it's going to last? 20 years, 30 years? Who cares? They didn't expect it to, be over 100. So most of the wood buildings, their very foundations had disintegrated to nothing. They're now concrete pads for posts, and they've been jacked up and renewed, and virtually all the buildings on site have now been stabilized. And this is a good thing, because many of them were such a state of advanced benign neglect, they would have fallen over any next time you sneezed. Here's a little hint. I promised Dave Dmitrovich, the chief mechanic, not to really reveal anything that hasn't been revealed. He's shown this. This is a new tank for number 16. The old one was rusted out, as they're wont to do. This is, hopefully you'll see this. It should be a faint orange, not quite yellow. It's very hard to replicate this color under the mixed lighting and computers and whatnot. Dave worked really hard trying to find the right amount. He had the numbers, and then he got the numbers, and he got it painted to that number, and it still wasn't right. So they hand mixed it. And trust me, it's got that EBT orange look to it. This was a surprise this year. This is the shelter over the coal tipple. This is the first building of the EBT foundation period that is brand new. I mean, this was gone. This was what the original one was taken down decades ago. And the idea of this is, behind me is a track coming up a steep grade where they would put one EBT hopper in here of coal, and it would dump down to the coal tipple. And this is a concrete coal tipple, which is pretty advanced stuff, and helped make the EBT the most modern freight railroad in the United States. I mean, they proudly boasted that they had the only all steel freight car fleet in the United States. Sorry, Denver Rio Grande Western fans, it's mostly wood you guys have. So this is brand new. It was the first time I'd seen it. A tremendous amount of brush cutting is done in the area. You wouldn't recognize it from 20 years ago. So we've got this angle, and here's another angle. It shows it rather clearly. The both sides of the tipple where the concrete is, the earth is washed away, and they'll have to reconstruct that, particularly on the right side. That's where the line comes up that grade for it to be fed the hopper. The plan is not to use hopper cars to load the coal tipple. There's a road, as you can see, over to the upper left. You know, trucks will come here, dump it in front of the place. They'll use a front end loader to shove it into the tipple itself. But they'll probably, I'm sure they'll reconstruct the track. That is, that's my cursor here. Hopefully you see my cursor. That's where the track should be. Originally, this thing was built with just the center chute, but I guess they felt that it was too hard to get the coal that was over here and over here, so they made these other two as well. There's a vast space underneath here, and in this space, they're going to put controls for the water suppression system and the water columns. Up back in here, a few hundred feet, they've the foundation has repaired the water reservoirs that the EBT originally put in there that are fed by wells. They're redrilling the wells. They're going to fill up the reservoirs with water, and this not only will supply the water columns, but also supply the water for the new fire suppression system, the sprinklers that are in the wooden buildings. Currently, the systems are all in place, but there's no water. So if there is an emergency, all the fire departments in the area know where to hook up their pumpers to the system so they can start pumping water inside in case there's a conflagration. Down here in the front, you'll see a rectangular concrete box. That's where a water column is. All along the front here, right in front of the tipple, of course, that's where the track will be. These buildings over here on the right, they're section gang. This was, you know, a hand car house, and these are tools. To the right goes south. To the left is you know, the main yard. And here's a pretty good shot. I, again, did this just Sunday. So this is definitely 2022. Way over on the right is the iconic office and station of the EBT. And of course, over here is the roundhouse, hand operated turntable. It originally had air, but after that, apparently was a pain to keep maintained, so they just use hand power. Originally, this stall right here, hopefully you can see it on my cursor, this stall got brick on both sides, and this was the original paint house for the place. But they figured there wasn't enough room or whatever, and the railroad built this long building here as their painting place. They kept it separate because of the flammability of the paint. And then they wound up using this storing junk. This building here was an addition when they started using buses. And this was where they kept the bus fleet. There's also a lot of junk here as well. And Dave has turned this into a modern day machine shop and also a brake testing facility. Let's see. Here, this building here is a farmhouse, stone farmhouse that predates the railroad. That means it was there before 1872. It has an illustrious history of family who was there from, I think, from the 1700s. This is a storehouse. This is this had severe damage. It was amazing it didn't collapse, but inside there were thousands, tons of parts that the friends are meticulously organizing. And here's the car shop, carpenter shop, various other buildings. This here is a car storage barn that is shared by both the Trolley Museum, which is here over on the right. This is their exclusive car barn. EBT has some stuff in here. This part here is the north leg of the Y. This is the south leg of the Y. And trains returning from Colgate Grove come in here, back out here, go here, back to the station. EBT in the tourist era was always prideful of the fact that their trains always had a steam engine on the front. And here's one of the, as you can see, rows of hopper cars, freight house, and so forth. Let's go to the next one. And okay, I glossed over this. But right here, this building, this is the machine shop. It's right next to the powerhouse, which is right here. Powerhouse made the steam that ran the engine that's in here, and here, here, and here, there are drive shafts with belt-driven machines. Virtually all of this stuff was in place by 1920, and they were really happy with it all, and so they never changed it. It is, when they stopped in 1956, they were using the same stuff they had been using in 1915, and they felt fine with that. And that's one of the greatest things about this railroad, is that it's such a time capsule. It didn't get modernized. It is just a perfect, preserved in amber industrial record of early 20th century railroading. And that's about it. Let's see, I think this is the electric office. This stores the little inspection car, which is a Nash body and 4 wheels and rides like a brick. This is the pattern house. This is the foundry. This crane here would pick up scrap iron to put in this furnace, and this is where they would make the pours, and these would be the oven where they keep the forms. Over here, this is the blacksmith house. Inside has a hearth, of course, and a little oven, a kneeling oven for making short ends, safe ends, I mean, and also the huge steam hammer. It's connected. There's line shafts going to the steam engine that's in here. This is the erecting hall, so to speak. Usually there was a steam engine here being worked on. They have a drop pit, a wheel lathe, no overhead crane, didn't need it. This is the boiler house, boiler shop, where they would fabricate new sheets. And this long building was the car shop, where they built virtually all of the hoppers on site. When it was nicer weather, the boys worked outside here because it's really noisy in here. This is the carpenter shop. It just recently was restored. It's got this new addition here and saved from collapse. This is the sand house. And again, a couple of section houses, and the stone house. And that's about it there. Oh my gosh, what a bunch of Goombas. Okay, we won't regard the guy on the far right. You know who that is. The fellow with the Union Jack, that's Joe Stropple. He's a young man in college, goes to school not far from me. He is single-handedly making the Long Island Railroad a fascinating, scenic railroad to look at. He's very talented with the drone, and on top of that, he's studying to be an opera singer. He has an amazing voice, and we'll see how he goes. Right in the middle there, some people know him as Wookie. That's Charles Friedrichs, poet laureate of rail fanning and angst. A wonderful man, a great rail fan. Had several articles recently in Rail Fan and Railroad magazine. The fellow in the Carhartt orange pants, that's Mark Glucksman. He's the inimitable photographer for River Rail Photos. Since he does a lot of work for railroad companies, he sorry guys. Since he does a lot of stuff for railroad companies, he knows everything, and he's everywhere. It's just phenomenal. He does a great record of finding unusual equipment moves and so forth. Behind him is Ralph Spielman, a rail fan extraordinaire. Just, it's amazing what he, I don't know, he just blows me away with what he knows. We're in Jamaica, and the purpose of which was to watch some trains. Over on the left is a rare set of M3s. They're about to be retired eventually. The middle is, and the M3s are coming from the Atlantic Terminal in Brooklyn. The center train is coming from Long Island City. And over on the far right is a train that's coming in from Penn Station next to J Tower, which is, just uses maintenance. Some more delightful clutter at the west end of Jamaica, an incredibly busy junction place, as you can see. All of these tracks are used with quite deal of frequency. And this was the main reason why we came, a genuine freight movement. You'll find that it's really rare for Dennis Livesey to take a picture of a freight train, but here it is. This is a demolition train, which is apparently a lucrative business for many companies. That is some sort of eco locomotive, the green one. And yeah, they get to go through once a day. Here we are at Stillwell Avenue, the end of the D, F, and N, and Q, and W trains. They renovated this about 20 years ago, which are desperately needed. Stillwell Avenue, where's that? It's in Coney Island. And it's a lovely spot to watch trains. The occasion was over a couple of stops over from Stillwell was this. This was the parade of trains. One thing that can be said about New York's MTA, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, they are full in on their history. And they have a dedicated bunch of railroaders volunteering their time to maintain the antique equipment. And this is a special occasion. Once a year, they bring out a parade of trains, and they go here from Brighton Beach up to 4th Avenue or something like that. About a 3-mile trip out and back. And you can ride this one. This is the oldest one. These were elevated cars, and they're all wood and a crowd delight. This is the R32s. These came online when I was just a youngster, and they were quite exciting because they were the first all air-conditioned cars. They were only recently retired, and I used to ride them twice a day. It was fun riding in the oldest cars in the system. There's an even older set. They call this the train of many colors. So here's where I break down. There are guys here who can tell you the exact make and model and the year and how many rivets. I don't know, but man, she's certainly pretty. The car on the right, that is a train that was originally for the IND, the Independent Line, which was kind of a misnomer. It was built by the city. The first two subway companies in New York City were private. And the private companies didn't go quite all the places the city wanted them to, so they built a third line called the IND. And these were the cars that originally were there. Now, take note if you can, next to the windows of that green car, you'll see an upright kind of grab iron, and you'll see thin metal plates down above the marker lights. Yeah, marker lights. So everybody has fun. Who can resist these old cars with porcelain, and some of them have rattan seats. Everybody has a good time. Got to have Miss Subways. Now this young man, indicative of the enthusiasm old stuff can have in people of all ages. He's a qualified MTA conductor, does his regular thing. But now notice those handles. He's standing on those thin little plates that I told you to look at. And these handles are not just there for grabbing. Note the top of the handles. What happens is that he's looking down that side of the train, and he will use what is his right hand on the left hand of the screen. He will use his hand to slap this down. This is a switch. He'll hit that down, and all the doors on that side of the train will close. Or conversely, after they're closed, he hits them, they'll open. And then he'll turn, look at the other end of the train, hit this, close the windows, doors. Okay, fine. This is nuts. He's standing outside of the train. He's between the two cars, and he's in subway tunnels, but heck, what about January and the rain, the snow, and the cold? Like, gee, goodness, what were they thinking? I remember seeing these guys working this stuff. I thought it was nuts then. I think it's crazy now, but he didn't mind. Yeah, get a little more of an idea of the conductor's position. Charles Freewicks told me about this thing through Mark Glexman. Here we are in beautiful Forest Hills, Long Island, looking back toward Manhattan at some of the really ugly pencil buildings that have penetrated my beloved skyline here. Scabby sticks, I hate them. I gladly snap them in two if I had hands big enough. My hope is that they'll all be demolished because they were shoddily made. Elevators don't work, water leaks, drafty, it's just, they're garbage. But yet the top ones sell for, like $20 million. Nuts. More Long Island goodness, zipping along. Trains run like streetcars on this line. Oh, what you can do with digital. You'll also notice something that in the foreground you see position lights. Remember that the Long Island Railroad was a stepchild of the Pennsylvania Railroad and got position lights. Here's a young lady. I don't know. I just saw her. I couldn't resist. It was just an interesting composition. Lucky number 7. This you may recall from a 2017 Trains magazine. It was a center spread. Here's the R32s, all nice and shiny. These were the last runs. That was the original banner and the original color with that pretty blue, which had lost over the years. But these were the final runs of the R32s. Yeah, this is what I mean. The MTA, this costs money, and not a problem. Let's honor these old cars that we're retiring, getting rid of, and we'll keep a few for fun. But doing this stuff, and all it costs was the subway fare. And these events are well attended, and those cars are full. Yes. I found this location at Smith and 9th in Brooklyn, and thought, wow, this would be a great shot. But I wanted to get storm light. I wanted to get clouds because clouds make the shot. And this shot was about a year in the making. as I may mention, as rail photographers, we also have to keep a a good look on the weather. There's that cough again. Sorry, guys. And that's what you got to learn about how weather works. And Coney Island. And funny story about this. I went down there on a Thursday, and I think this is 2016. And I'm over to the right of this scene, and a train comes in. And I'm right at the end. The train comes in. The operator is right there. The window slams down, and he said, "Hi, how you doing? My name's Harold." I said, "Hi, Harold. How are you?" And say, "Harold, why is the Coney Island so dark?" And he said, "Oh, that's because this time of year they don't open up till Friday." "Oh, okay, thanks." And he went on his way. And I wasn't happy with that position, but I thought I'd be happier on this other position. So the very next night, I come back on this platform, and over there on the opposite side, train comes in, door slams down, window slams down, and it's, "Hey, Dennis, it's Harold. How you doing?" Anyway, got this yummy bit. We call it Psych 1 because over there on the left, the famous Cyclone roller coaster, which is, it's not very long, it's not very big, but it'll rattle the teeth out of your head. This one I recently with CRPA won a third prize recognition for storm effects. I was with Steve Barry, and we just hopped off the number 7 train in Queensboro Plaza station, and I saw this thing and I clicked. Speaking of weather, I'm on the number 1 train platform at 125th Street, and it's on a viaduct about 100 feet high. It's one of the few places in Manhattan where I live in a New York City apartment, and so we have neighbors that are noisy. Anyway, I just shot, I go out whenever there's snow because it happens so few. Doesn't happen all the time. And I had to, would you hold on a minute, please? Jeez. Sorry for that interruption. Anyway, I entered this in my company's photo contest, and I won a pizza. Number 7 line, another stormy, yucky day. And Grand Central, of course, with the Chrysler building in the background. That eagle you see in the foreground was not there originally with this building. It was with the building that was on that site before this one. There were several of these cast iron eagles, and this one was repatriated and put here amongst great controversy. Works for me. Works for the picture. I love this place. I was feeling down in the dumps. It was one of those creative lows. Oh my gosh, I can't do anything. Might as well give it all up. Go throw my cameras away. And I find when I feel like that, I just got to go out and do something. So I noticed the weather was good for cloud effects, and hopped on the number 6 train, looking to see what I could find. I'm somewhere in the Bronx, Parkchester, that's right. And I could get this. Ooh. You'll find that Dennis Livesey is a photographer. Subtlety doesn't always apply. If I can make it as, in your face as possible, I will. Oh my gosh, I love this one. There's so much stuff going on here. Lots of fun. It was a good evening. Oh yeah, well, this evening was good too. This is at on the number 7 line. The number 7 line is very, very good to me. I'm at 40th Street. I'm looking toward Manhattan. You used to be able to see the Empire State Building. It's hidden behind this stupid thing. And the Chrysler Building's right over there. Most of these buildings here are brand new, and they've been here in the past 10 years. Long Island City has just erupted, literally, with silver glass buildings. Now, if you go way over here, here is the #1 World Trade at the tip of Manhattan, popularly known as the Freedom Tower. The owners of the building don't like you to call it that. And yeah, nope, not over yet. We still got more. This is the Long Island Railroad. This land here, this is about 7 years ago. This land here used to be a New York Central freight yard, was disused at the time. And the Long Island Railroad say, hey, we'd really like to put our stuff here rather than going back up to Long Island. So this makes it much more natural. They just put it here and then it goes east from here. Those buildings there are the new Hudson Yards. Eventually, all of this track will be undercover. It's supposedly a park. Back out at Jamaica, I was with Joe Stropple this January. If you look hard, there are little teeny lights, little dots of light. You can see here. And what those are track heaters. Unlike the ones they have in Chicago, which are major conflagrations, they're more economical here and use gas more sparingly. This was a bitterly cold evening, but it worked out very well. Alerted by Joe that the position lights are in danger, I immediately went out that evening and was able to bag these at, doggone it, I can't remember where it was. I spent the evening there. This one's kind of cool since it's a time exposure. If you look over the track, the signal is giving 2 indications at once of what it won't do. And it's only because it's a time exposure that you get to see this 2 indication at once. Further on, you see another set of signals. I've been trying to get a shot at this place for a couple of years and just nothing but misfires and failures and whatnot. Finally, I had to I tried something more elaborate. I got my kids there. We put up all these lights. It just didn't work. So this was pretty simple. I had a 12-foot painter pole with a holder on it, a ball head on it. And I have a Canon 6D, which is controlled by an app, my phone. I could look at my phone and see what my camera was looking at, and I can press the button and it'll fire. I find making it shoot continuously is the best success. Also, it's dark as heck though. How am I gonna light this? Normally I shoot using on-camera flash, but there wasn't anything else I could do. So I did it that way. Of course, my goal was to have also a number 6 train above. And well, the timing's everything. And there's only one of these things an hour, and there's only one in the evening of the Yacellas. And I got there, I set up, things were okay. And then an Amtrak regional comes through and I shot that, and that was okay. But the timing was so delayed and messed up. I thought maybe that was running instead of the Yacella, but I stood around. Now the problem is with this location and electric locomotives, they're silent. I couldn't hear them. And all of a sudden, just out to the right, I see them there, and I thought, oh, I missed it. I couldn't have possibly have gotten it. So I pull the thing down off the pole, and I look at the back screen and I go, oh, oh. I'm in a public park, and there's a guy over on the right, and he said, I take it you got the shot, huh? Anyway, this, I did do some processing on this to make it look pretty, and or pretty gross or grungy or whatever. Speaking of which, that building in the center is a railroad station. It was built in 1915, designed by Cass Gilbert, one of the finest architects of the age. It was a beautiful thing filled with terracotta and Spanish mission, and it served the New York, Westchester, and Boston, and the New Haven Railroad. The New Haven Railroad, though, gave up the ghost because of that subway line that you see. Why pay full railroad fare when you can ride for a nickel? And the Westchester hung on until 1937, and then it closed down. This station, this building, has been empty ever since. There are plans by a group that is reclaiming the Bronx River over to the right as a head house for their park. I hope these plans come to fruition. Oh, and finally, this was in the Center of Railroad Photography and Art's latest book, Continuity and Change. This, my dear boys, is a genuine Delaware, Lackawanna, and Hudson, Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western banner made of felt. The Historical Society who owns this says it hasn't been out of its box more than 3 times in 70 years. I want you to know I touched it. What's going on here? Well, we're at the United Railway Historical Society's Boonton Yard, Boonton, New Jersey yard, where they have 50 pieces of equipment that represent New York and New Jersey railroads. Over on the left is pretty obvious. That's the Hickory Creek, made in 1948, part of the New York Central's 20th Century Limited, arguably the world's finest passenger train. And over on the right, you're probably looking at that and say, what the heck is that thing? Well, it is a genuine New York Central unit, 4083. It served on that railroad. In the about 1962, 63, they were trying to come up with a new image to counteract the lightning stripe, and they came up with like 3 locomotives that they painted a shade of green, jade green, and this very unit was this very color. And one of the younger guys, some of the younger guys, the historical societies, this was too darn cool to let go. And so they motivated and did this. Older heads like me saying, I want that lightning stripe and gray. Yeah, right. No, this is interesting. This is history. This is preservation. This is a teaching tool. As you can see, people like to take pictures with it. This was taken by my friend Mark Foreman, an excellent photographer in his own right. And this is the URHS. They open up their yard one day a year, and they call it Museum for a Day. Otherwise, you can't get in unless you're a volunteer. And so they have a pretty good crowd, as you can see. Unfortunately, they're guys like this guy with a white cap messing up, trying to take pictures. Lots of fun. I've gone every year. They've been open for five years or so. This was a star of the show. Just like the MTA, the subway section of the MTA is very into history. So is the New Jersey Transit. And they recognize their employees. And this is a thank you and have some fun employee thing. This unit was originally for the Central Railroad of New Jersey in its last years as a commuter locomotive. and in this color, this very paint scheme. And just this year, past few months, this unit was changed in these colors. And naturally, all the guys, the rank and file, think this is really cool, and I do too. There have been other open houses I've not attended, but I've seen where they show open appreciation for their employees, which is, of course, so unlike our main line railroads. But we won't go there. In the cab is Mike Del Vecchio, erstwhile everyman. He's an amazing fellow in and of itself, of himself. He was an editor for Railfan and Railroad magazine. He's worked in several capacities as a music producer, music store owner, bass player, musician. Currently, he works for a railroad that services Exxon's Bayway refining plant in New Jersey. I spent a weekend with him chasing the 611, and he's about the only rail fan that I know who could give a definition of translation of je ne sais quoi. You can't resist. They have Pennsylvania equipment there. This is the 4877, which for a short time in its last years was painted Tuscan red, which it never wore in original service. This is now back in its proper colors of Brunswick green, which is 9 parts black and 1 parts green, with Lowy 5 stripes. Well, if we're going to do Pennsy, we got to do New York Central. And the Hickory Creek is currently on its way to the Naugatuck Railroad in Thomaston, Connecticut, where it's going to be for the next month. So you get to ride it on a wonderful short line that's run by Howard Pincus. It's an amazing place, what those guys do there. And I encourage you to visit if you're ever over on this side of the country. This gentleman's name is Richard, and I just love that sign at the end of that Henry Dreyfuss designed sign. I just had to come up with something to do something with this. This turned out, I think it's a pretty good tribute to New York Central employees. This is last Saturday. This is the Everett's Railroad number 11, cute little mogul. Built for Cuban sugar lines, but never wound up there or something like that. And I first saw this in one of the BB books and fell in love with this and wanted to see it. Never did, of course. Oddly enough, it wound up in Middletown, New York, not far from my in-laws, where the Middletown, New Jersey owner had hoped to steam it up, but that never came to pass. Went to another couple of owners, and then Alan Maples of the Everett Railroad bought this. And the Everett now is about 50% freight and 50% passenger for its revenues. They have a second steam locomotive that they're planning to put online. They do absolutely immaculate coach work. It's just phenomenal. It's beautiful stuff. Any mother would love to have these coaches for their home. That's Max Harris. For guys our age, my age, whatever, there's always the concern, well, we've got all this nice stuff. Well, what's going to become of it? Who's going to be interested? Well, we needn't worry too much, because the allure of railroading, steam railroading in particular, the same effect it had on us, it has on everybody else. And here's Max. I think he's 20. And he's a professional railroader, works for the Everett on their freight jobs, knows his stuff, and is a great guy. Some more Everett stuff. We put a vintage tractor and a vintage hay baler on a flat car. Chris Lands, a locomotive engineer of himself, a steam locomotive engineer of, you might have heard of it. It's called the 765. It's a little locomotive. It's been around a while. He's an engineer on that. And so he organized this thing, and he did a terrific job in coming up with a varied consist, not the same thing for every picture. and Everett's a delight. I forget the engineer's name, but I know what he's saying right now. If I can only get this thing up to 88 miles an hour, I'll be good. A very unusual house. I have no idea why they cut a corner out of it like that. It's just weird. We were fighting storm cloud all day. Here we are in beautiful Roaring Springs, Pennsylvania. Absolutely delightful little town with the cutest little station. And Chris arranged with the local car club to come on by with their shiny 50s vehicles. Genuine whistle posts from the olden days. I don't know, I couldn't resist. Jumping back to now we're heading to the other end of Pennsylvania. We had been over in middle Pennsylvania. Now we're over here in coal country, northeastern Pennsylvania. This is the Reading and Northern's Pacific, originally for the Gulf of Mobile and Ohio, or Gulf Ohio. And she's a loud little thing. I swear the steam crew at the railroad does their best to make it the loudest machine possible. That's Shane Fredrickson, and that's his son. And we're in Nesquehoning, Pennsylvania. Orrin is driving the car, and I'm shooting. I did about 50 frames, and all of them stunk, except this one. It really epitomizes what I felt is what's really great about steam, the movement and the exhilarating feeling it engenders. This is one of the few pictures I have of a railroad president. That's Andy Muller, the man who makes all things wonderful on his railroad, allowing us to ride behind his magnificent locomotives. This is a very popular spot. It's not really a tunnel, but a road goes over it. But I just loved what the inspection lights did to the arch. More Andy Muller goodness. That is new. That is a new building. We're in Outer Station, Reading, Pennsylvania. This is the loading area for the long excursions for the railroad. As you can see, there are cars in the background. That is essentially a replica of a 1890s Reading switch tower. It is the passenger department's operating headquarters up top. Down below, that's restrooms. Zipping up to Port Clinton, where the engine house is. This is, we're obviously getting steam up. That's a new roundhouse, but the turntable is original. Unfortunately, the turntable is too small for the 2102, but it can turn the 425. Here we are in just south of Ringgold. This is a popular section that's pretty open. Popular with people who like not to have other people in the frame. Every time I go there, there's only like 2 others. So you get a peopleless, fanless shot. This car is obviously the tail end car. It's the former Mardi Gras. It was built in like 1947 by the Illinois Central. They took a coach. They took 2 coaches and rebuilt it into this configuration for the city of New Orleans, their most famous train between Chicago and New Orleans. And this ran all up until Amtrak and under the railroad. Now, of course, there's the famous song, "The City of New Orleans" by Steve Goodman, who rode the train. And I just bet you dollars to donuts Mr. Goldman rode in this very car. Here we are somewhere north of Tamaqua on one of the 2102, and this was in October. Where there's steam, there are rail fans. And here we are at Jim Thorpe Junction, and there's a bridge, part of the Y in the background. Over on the left is Joe Fusco. He makes superbly good videos. In the right front is Mark Turkovich. He's all of 19 himself, and already very, very handy with the camera. You know, something for you diesel guys. The Reading Northern, it's a very busy railroad. I mean, it's not just that one big steam train that came into Jim Thorpe. There were two other trains. This is one of them. This is coming from what is that place? It's above Reading. Anyway, this excursion on different track is run by the railroad. Also, there's the Lehigh Valley Gorge excursions that run out of Jim Thorpe as well. It's busy. Okay, kiddies, railroad safety. Look at this thing. Most of the Reading Northern is very treed in. It's not like the olden days where trees were cut back. And the blasting of the stack causes trees and leaves and branches to fall off. And this thing nearly got me. You saw this one. We're arriving back at Reading Outer Station at the end of the day. Looking mighty fine. With Mark Turkovich at the wheel, I managed to get this one south of Tamaqua. And golly gee whiz. In 1961 was the first time I ever saw a live steam locomotive, and it was the Reading 2124, which is retired and up at Steamtown. And I don't know, this locomotive, I saw this and I figured all locomotives were like this, right? I didn't realize most of them were a lot smaller and some of them not as handsome. Some people don't like the front of that. Phooey on you. I don't care. I think it's the most handsome Reading steam locomotive ever made, which is not saying much. Most of the Reading stuff looks pretty awful, but this one looks damn attractive, particularly in a pacing shot. Very rainy that day. They're getting steam up. Oh, the rain stopped. Nice puffiness. This is a Andy Mullerism in that little shelter was elsewhere on the railroad. He had it someplace else and he put it back here at Molino. And it's a wonderful little prop for us. I guess he put it there for the passengers to see as well. Now, if you look hard on the right, at the end of the tender, you see that branch that I just showed you. This is how it's always wise to stay away from the train. More fun with 2102 and utility poles. They're really ugly and what a mess, but hey, this was something interesting to do. You can see what I mean by treed in, but in fact, 2102 is basically a tree pruning service. Now, this gentleman, I believe he lived in the house, not 100 feet from here, and he came out sans camera with this implacable look on his face. He appears to be a trucker who likes golf, but I don't know. This was just too good to resist. So I had to snap the shutter. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is we finally reached the conclusion of our little show. This is perhaps my favorite shot of 2022, of 2102, making its first moves. This was in May, and getting ready to pull the first excursion in 31 years. So thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate the privilege of being able to speak to all of you folks. I hope I haven't bored you too much.
Hey, Dennis.
Thank you. Yes.
Are you willing to take questions if we have any?
Well, certainly. Yeah. My
Anybody,
voice
anybody here in the house have
notwithstanding,
a question?
Dennis, what are you using for a camera today?
I've been Canon now for 20 some years. Most of these pictures were taken with 6Ds. This one on the screen is taken with my rather new R6. It's a mirrorless camera, full frame. Naturally, that I bought it 2.5 years after it came out. And so this week Canon has announced a R6 Mark II. But I'm liking the transition to mirrorless because the camera is better. I've got a better sensor now. The sensor in it is was the top of the line DSLR sensor. Now it's the best. It's better than my 60s. It's got a much better focusing system. I love the flippy screen. I can do tricks with it. It's got much better video. I love the controls, the redundant controls, which allow you to pick the ones that work best for you. Overall, I'm enjoying it very much, and hope someday to get nothing but mirrorless cameras and mirrorless lenses.
Impressive work. Thanks. By the way, how much is the R6 Mark II?
Mark II, I haven't checked the price, but I assume it's somewhere around $2,500. I should know these things because I work at B&H.
Yeah, I was going to say there. You probably know a guy that works at a big camera house. So.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hell, yeah, I answer thousands of questions. I just use the, what does it say on a computer? Oh, that's the price. So I tend to leave work at home, at work, and forget about that stuff. But yeah, it's, but now, you know, soon the R6 will be coming down in price.
Anybody else in the house here have any more questions? All right. You've been so complete with your answers, Dennis, that they have no questions for you, you know.
Yeah, I think it's probably they're so stupefied by all this folderol that they're inert.
It must be an East Coast thing. I don't know. So anyway.
Probably.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a look at your pictures.
Well, you know, certainly. It was, of course, my pleasure. I'm glad to show my stuff to anybody who wants to see it, and glad you enjoyed them.
All right. Thank you again, Dennis. I've got a couple of quick announcements, but thank you for your show, and hopefully you'll come back and show us something else somewhere down the line.
Okay, if you can put up with it, I'm game.
Oh, one more question.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me better now, but in any event, those are the kinds of shots that I used to strive to take. And like you say, 100 shots and you get one that you like. What is your experience in terms of the number of shots that you wind up taking when you're serious like that? First question. And then the second question is, do you have any publications of those shots or a web page where you can just go look at them again or something like that?
Well, of course, you know, now in the age of digital, you know, you can shoot as many as you want. In the on the one-day charter on Saturday, I think I did something like 1,200 images. You have the luxury now of being able to bzzz, when you're not quite sure what's going to happen. So you keep trying to capture the moment. the ratio is fairly high, obviously, but since there's no film costs, it's not really an issue. So out of those, I don't know, 1,200, 1,400 shots, so far I've come down to, I don't know, about 5 or 6 that I really like. I guess that's crazy, but then the other thing is that I've always gone by this rule, or at least I have for the past 10 years or so, that at the end of one day of shooting, all it takes is one picture to make it a success. And if I've got one good one, it's been a successful day. If I get more than that, even better. So onto your second question, I'm spend way too much time on Facebook. If you go to Dennis Livesey, scroll down to my photos, and you can engorge yourself on a whole bunch of stuff that I put there. I'm also on Rail Pictures, not very active there anymore. And I have a website, livesyimages.com, livesyimages.com, and you can take a look at that. Oh, I forgot. It's my one book, published it about 5 years ago, Smoke Over Steamtown. And it's available at your favorite bookseller for about $30.
So I didn't know this, but I think this guy in the audience, you must have paid him to tee you up for this commercial. It was the perfect intro. It was a perfect intro. Any other questions here? I'm kidding, Dennis. We love you, man. Really. So,
not a problem.
I was also going to mention earlier about Union Pacific. You guys have probably heard that some of their equipment is moving this Friday, and I had been bugging Ed ever since they announced that this stuff was going to go to Illinois. I've been trying to get us a tour so that we could go look around up there while there was still more things to look at. And I was even bugging him up to this weekend, and there was a chance that we could maybe go tomorrow, but over the weekend, some of the windows in the shop blew in. And so he had to take care of that. And then he also had to make the place safe for his workers. So that took away our tour. Maybe we can get one after they come back, but I think most of the crew has to go with the locomotives and whatever else they're taking. And I think they're speed restricted to about 20 miles an hour. So it'll be a slow chase across Nebraska and Iowa. So if anybody's, kind of bored on Friday, you could probably go have a cup of coffee, chase it a couple miles, and have another cup of coffee. And anyway, that happens this Friday. I know we don't get to do many things like charters and tours, but your ever vigilant board is always on the lookout for these things, and we do what we can. So anywho, like I said, next month is Keith doing the program with our cookies and soda, and Steve Berry, who Dennis referred to, will be doing our show from the East Coast in January, and beyond that, I don't have anything lined up yet, but I know February, our meeting is on Valentine's Day. So you guys will have to tell me if you'll show up for a meeting to find out if we have anybody. We did have Ed Dickens one year on Valentine's Day, and we had 87 people turn out. So that was pretty good. So, all right. Anything else from anyone? Yes, we do need to get your renewals in so that you are good for next year and you don't lose your spot on your seniority number if you haven't done that. Keith will, like I said, Keith will be here next month. We obviously don't have our treasurer at the table this time, but if you didn't get your renewals in, I know they're encouraging everybody to do it by PayPal. And if you really do want to bring a check, then please be here next month. And thanks for tuning in to the folks that are not here in the house with us. And for those of you that are here, would you please hang up your chairs? And thanks for coming. Thank you, Dennis.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you,
out
guys.
at Strasburg right now and have the 611 tomorrow.
What was that?
3 different photo sessions of 611 in Strasburg tomorrow. So that's why I'm not at the meeting tonight.
Oh, that's Keith talking, Dennis. He's our treasurer. He's live and remote from somewhere farther away.
Strasburg.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. Right.